Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Dancing Geek podcast. My name is James, or Dancing Geek online, and you can find all the details to find me in the show notes. I'm kind of tired today, as you who follow me on Instagram, there was a sentence in there somewhere, will possibly know because I posted that I was procrastinating this morning, and I have been. It's now like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'd normally have this recorded by now. Yes, so possibly slightly quieter, possibly I would cheer up as a result of doing the podcast, because the podcast is very good fun, but we'll see. So, I have some FOs to show you guys today. I have some socks. Ba-ching! Now I feel like I've already showed you these, but I think it's just because I was sort of almost finished up one of these and I had the other one up. So if I pull these back, there we go. So this is the socks at the moment. There you go. You can actually, it's not very easy. It's a bit too busy behind them. There we go. That's better. And you can see that they don't match up, but that's how I like it. I like them not matching up. That's how I have my socks generally anyway. I don't like socks that match. This is how I like them. They're looking a bit floppy on the blockers today because these are actually they've been worn and they haven't been washed yet. Sorry about that. So yeah, they're just that was stitched in the background. So they need to be washed to come back to form. But I thought I'd show you guys these this week rather than wait till they come back out of the wash, because I'm excited that I finished them. Yeah, it's October, so which for anyone who doesn't know, it just means lots of people are making socks in October. And there's also lots of knit-alongs, so I shall be entering these, and I have another pair that I started to show you in a second. The other thing that I have made, which I've just realised matches with my outfit rather well today, is I made another one of these beautiful lacy scarves. This is not in Manos del Uruguay's silk blend, because this is going to be a gift for my lovely friend Katie over in Germany, who has done the most awesome thing of creating a design for me, with me, by me, of me, inspired by me, dedicated to me, just with lots of meanness in it, and just, yeah, so she's awesome. She's Knit Sew Crochet on Instagram and Ravelry, and her design stuff is under Pi and Anne, Pi spelled P-I, as in the mathematical number. Yeah, and we're doing a bit of a swap. She bought me some yarn over at Wollmeiser when she went to their shop, and she said she liked the scarves that I'd shown earlier in the series, and she would like one made in a British yarn. So this is wool from the Falkland Islands that has been, I think it's something like prepared in Devon and spun in Cornwall and then dyed by the Natural Fibre Company, or I kind of lose track, and then Blacker Yarns is the company that ultimately then sells the wool, but it's like British sheep, British spinners, dyers, preppers, everything goes through British processors. And this particular yarn is called Blacker Swan because it's Swan Farms up in Falkland where the wool comes from, and it's like a collaboration between the farm and the yarn company. And it's this gorgeous colour, which is sort of a yellow orange, really. The more I look at it, the oranger it gets, which is interesting because when I first bought it I was worried it was too yellow. But you can see it goes really well with the alpaca in this, and it looks very similar to what I'm wearing on my head, because unintentionally I just didn't want to wear my hat again because I was getting a bit bored of only wearing my, I mean, admittedly I love that hat, but my hat in the podcast. That's my socky, is it slouchy sock hat or socky slouchy hat or something like that, which is the orange, brown and white variegated one, which I love, but I thought I'll go for something different. So I took one of my Manos scarves and I've just tied it to try and tidy my hair back. And it goes really nice with the shawl. It's a bit cold today. In fact, it's not actually cold in this room because I've stuck the heating on, but I still feel cold, which tells me I'm a bit at the moment, which is going to be partially sleep deprivation and partially season changing, getting a bit of an infection type thing or whatever, so we'll see, you know. I'm not feeling like I've got a full-on cold, but you know, I might be fighting something off to make sure that I don't. Yeah, so this is going to be a little gift to send over to Katie. I am going to Bakewell wool gathering at the weekend, so there probably will be a little extra something in here, in the package that goes over. Because it doesn't look very big. And I'm like, it's really, really nice. Proper wool and everything, it's lovely. And squishy and soft, not scratchy at all, which is really nice when you get something that's properly British. And it's like British wool, but it's not. That's not the only thing on the label which tells you it's going to be scratchy and horrible and cheap. Not always, but often. Yeah, so that's exciting, little FO. And yes, and I'm looking forward to sending that off. I need to get in touch actually because I don't have her address yet, and I have no idea how to package something up and send it off, so we'll be working that out. So that's my 2 FOs, which I'm very proud of, and I can now go on to show you my whips. I will start with this little beauty which is next to me, and this is I think a first. Yeah, I think it's a first on my podcast. I've shown you an FO before, but this is a whip of spinning! Yes, it's still even on the spindle. Let's give it a chance to... No. Come on, camera. There we go. Very nice. So there we are. That's what I'm spinning up at the moment. And this is some more of the other stuff that I showed you that I'd spun on my aunt's wheel when I was visiting her after Yarndale. So the Fibre, again, is this gorgeous stuff. You can see it's getting smaller and smaller as I work my way through it, but there's still loads of it left. Oh my god. And this is Hilltop Cloud. Oh, sorry, I'm not holding it very well. But it's called Ross, which I don't know if that's the colourway or the blend or anything. But it's got merino, Shetland, silk and baby alpaca, I think it is. Just double check that myself. Oh, yeah, spot on. Very, very nice. And that was a Yarndale purchase. I saw it hanging, the little Fibre in a store, and just like, neat. And when I'd finished and I got up and moved away, I found this on the floor that clearly I dropped when I was drafting. So I shall... I was too tired when I stopped because it was 3 in the morning, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. But yes, I wasn't going to put it in then, and I haven't come back to it since. But that's a spinning whip, and I'm quite excited about it now that I've started to actually have a quantity, because I'm spinning a whole braid, as I've just been spinning samples before, really. Sort of spinning up a whole braid. I'm quite excited to think actually I might have like a skein of something, a small skein probably, I don't know, so I'm going to be very efficient with it or anything or what have you, but I'll have a skein of something that I can make a project out of. What else? Let's go for the stripy jumper. I was showing you the box. Excuse me. Oh dear, maybe I am fighting something off, hey. So the pattern, I didn't show you this last time I don't think, is this stripy jumper. I've got the pattern for the other one over here. It's a vintage 60s pattern that I saw a photo for or something and then hunted online to find the pattern. And it's just a little short sleeve stripy jumper. It's pretty straightforward. I've converted it to knitting in the round because it's a vintage pattern. It's all knit, flat and seam. And I saw somebody else suggest it and I thought, yeah, actually it's not going to be difficult to do, is it? And so I've done a little more. So let's just get another, trying to get a flat section without dropping it off the needle. So there you go. So you can see, I've not quite finished the brown stripe I'm working on at the moment, but if I fold this out, there we go. Move this out of the way as well. In fact, if I tuck it over, there we go. So it's not distracting. You can see I start with the dark green and the mixed dark and light brown. And it's lighter green, light brown, very light green, brown and yellow. It goes back to the dark green and the dark brown. So I've done a couple more stripes since I last showed you. It's a lovely sort of straightforward project, but it's not one of my want to get it done over October projects. Because if I was going to want to get this done, I'd want it done by Saturday to take to Bakewell to show natural born dyers, because the yarn for this is almost all natural born dyers with the exception of the middle brown stripe, which is Lyle Bear, who's also going to be at Bakewell Wool Gathering. I can't remember to say Yarndale for some reason. Did I just say Yarndale? I don't know. Anyway, it's Bakewell Wool Gathering on Saturday. Both the dyers for these yarns are going to be there. But there's no way that I'm going to be able to finish this in 2 days. It's not going to happen. Plus, I just don't want that stress. That's just stress that I don't want. So yes, I mean you can see all the yarn, so I shan't bother getting all the yarn cakes out again and what have you. Maybe another time in the future. I've got a couple of stripes done on that. And that was another one that I was doing at like ridiculous o'clock in the morning, and the reason for both of those is because I was doing a little VKNs, but I shall, as I said, I'll come back to that later. So another one to show you guys. I'm doing sneaky here, and you'll see why in a second. So just bear with me. Another one to show you guys, which is quite fun. This is one of the things that I had a cast-on party for, and then ta-da! And I am very, very happy with how this is turning out now. So I've actually broken out my straight needles for this. This is because, one, it's a 12-inch blanket square, so it seems really obvious to just knit it on straights. But I almost always knit everything on my circulars because I've just got the interchangeable circulars. The Knit Pro Novas is what I use just because that's what I saw and it looked okay and I bought it. And then I've just sort of supplemented, I was going to say complemented, supplemented that when I bought extra needles so they all work together. But this is on a 4.5mm. It doesn't tell me what the US size is on the needle because it's British needles. And I have another project that was using my 4.5mm circular interchangeable needles. So I was like, oh, and I look, but I have all my needle specs on Ravelry under the needle section because I am a ardent cataloguer of all of my stash and my needles and my projects and everything. And so I just had a quick click onto the needles page and looked down the 4.5mm column and went, oh, I have some straights. I'll go and grab those. And do it up on those. And it's quite cool because I bought them quite a while ago and then never ended up using them. I think probably I got the interchangeables between buying them and starting the project or something like that. So they were still in their packet, so I got to open them up and have a go. And just the cabling, I mean the wool is, I think it's Jameson and Smith. I should have the ball band in here if I've not been silly. No, I've been silly because I switched bags and thrown it away. But it's the stuff, it's all on my project page, and it's the stuff that I made my dad's Aran sweater out of a few years ago. And it was a cabled Aran, so it's really, I knew it was going to be really good for cables. It's that kind of Shetland wool that you know is like traditional cabling wool. It's got really good structure to it, but it's not horribly scratchy or anything, but it's not necessarily next to your neck kind of wear. And I'm really, really chuffed with the cables, and I just love the pattern. On the original design there were two sections here and here, either side of the main central knot, that that I've had to take out, because even though my needle size is the same as the pattern and the pattern is designed for 12 inch, when I did the gauge I kept going down needle size, down a needle size, down. I got to 3mm needles for Aran wool, and excuse me. Yeah, and it was still massively overgauged, so I just cut chunks out of it, worked out the stitch count and everything. But I did the gauge maths, worked out the stitch count, used that to work out what I should cut out of the pattern, and it worked out really nicely. It was the 2 boring strips, worked out perfectly. So I did that, and it's looking great. And hopefully the sort of the curling that you get at the end of cabling might block out a bit. Certainly it's designed to go into a blanket that for Obi-Wan Knitter, who is Dan from Bakery Bears podcast, and has been having a rough time health-wise. No one seems to say exactly what it is, because they haven't said exactly what it is on their podcast, but it's in the podcast group, and you can sort of tell on Instagram and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty nasty. I'll say it's the C word, but I won't go into more than that. So the gorgeous, wonderful people in the knitting community, i.e. you guys, and me as well, have been knitting up blanket squares, but we've only got till the end of the month. I was so slow about getting it started. It's been up for like over a month now, and it's, but I'm determined I'm going to get this one done. This is my next project to finish, so that I can send that off to Dan K to be included in the blanket. And I'm really, really chuffed with it. And it has actually, there's lots of other kind of significance in this, really, for doing this pattern and stuff for Dan, because as I said, it's the same wool as I made Dad's cabled Aran sweater in. And as I've mentioned before, I lost Dad and Mum to cancer in the last few years, so there's kind of a extra significance for me in making this as the blanket square, as a sort of get well soon, good luck, everything, and we're hoping that sort of the last of the treatments, either in this session, I think the last of the treatments are done, possibly the last of the treatments full stop are done, I'm not entirely sure, but hopefully they might be doing another podcast soon. Because they worked out they could roughly do every 3 weeks for Dan to be in a okay place to do it. So fingers crossed, we'll get to see them soon and find out what the news is. But yeah, so like I say, yeah, there's a bit of extra sort of meaning and love in there for me and from me to those guys. Oh, the other needle. They're freaking big needles as well. These are the full size needles. You know, knit jumper on that, no problem. Oh yes, there we go. I'd written some notes and then I did them in a different order to the notes, but I just grabbed the first thing at the side, and I was like going, what have I not done? So this is my next pair of socks that I mentioned earlier, and I'm using for these the same pattern. Which, oh gosh, I didn't say, did I? I didn't say the patterns for either of my FOs. And I haven't given you the pattern for my blanket square. Oh dear, okay. Let's go in reverse order. So the blanket square, I have to look at the pattern name for this, but it's a free pattern, so I'm not sort of destroying anything by showing it. It's November Square by Woolen Collectibles. And you can see some of my gauge math happening up here. And that's it's not a very easy pattern to follow, but it is free. It's very much chart based, and like the legend is up here. The description of each of the stitches is up here. The legend is down here, and then the chart is in 2 pieces that aren't the same height over here. So it's not the simplest. But it's totally worth the effort in working it out, and it's a free pattern, so you're not going to complain about the pattern not being super easy to follow or anything. The scarf that I have made for Katie and that I am also wearing is the Ultra Bland scarf. I cannot remember the designer's name off the top of my head, but it's another free pattern and it's really, really awesome. So I recommend you either search for Ultra Bland scarf on Ravelry or look at any of the scarves on my project page. They'll link to the Ultra Bland scarf pattern. And then these socks that I have made and that I am making, and I'll show you in a second, are the Ribbed for His Pleasure pattern by Christopher Dixon. And Christopher is spelled Krystoffer. He's also Knits with Balls on Instagram, if that's an easier way to find him. And again, the project page will link to his pattern and everything. He has a couple of other patterns, one free and one for a shawl that you can just repeat as many times as you want it to be, so it's a variable width shawl. They're ribbed all the way down the foot, which means they're really good for when you're not sure about sizing on feet, which is why I got this pattern, because I was complaining on Instagram about it and Chris got in touch and said, here, try this pattern, and I was like, oh my god, thank you. And it does fit so much easier than the other patterns I tried to re-knit and somehow couldn't make work because I'd not bothered following gauge in my first pair of socks and just was really, really lucky that it happened to fit me, basically. Because then when I tried to follow gauge and make it happen, yeah, it didn't work. So I'm a beginner, a novice sock knitter, and I will be working on that. And I've got some non-ribbed socks that I am that I've cast on, but I haven't done any progress with. But I did a cast-on party after I finished a bunch of stuff. So yeah, that's these, and the progress that I have made so far. It's not huge, guys, so don't get too excited. But they are very, very pretty. So, ta-da! Yes! So I'm doing a contrast cuff, and I'm going to do a contrast heel and toe as well, because these are cuff down. It's a cuff down pattern. Oh, please excuse me, Rory is at the door. Come on, little guy. There we go. Right. So yeah, this is a cuff down pattern, and I decided that I wanted to do some contrasting one, mostly because the Awesome Foxes in Socks podcast are doing a knit along for it, and I'm always like, yay, knit along, yay, prizes. I love getting prizes. I love getting anything. Gifts are amazing. More on that later. So the two yarns that I'm using, one is, I shall see if I can do it now actually, because I could have undone the sellotape, couldn't I? And then, oops, I'm ripping it. That's fine so long as you guys can still see, but I don't want to, I don't want to pull the print off the label. This is fun, isn't it? Let's watch James peel sellotape. I've still done it, but never mind. There we go. And I'll have to do it for the other one as well. So the orange yarn is from 5 Moons. The colourway is Penitent, and it is as bright an orange as it looks on the screen. Let's get this. This one isn't attached, so I can pull this one up. It is gorgeous! I saw this. This is a Yarndale purchase. It is amazing! I love it! Yes! Bright orange! And I was like, yes, I want! And I was poring over her stall, and I had to make myself behave because she wasn't the first stall I'd gone to, so I had gone burst through my budget already. So I bought 2 half skeins of sock yarns, Superwash Merino Nylon 75-25 mix, in solids. So the other one I got was a flapjack. I showed you those, I think last week. I did the Yarndale. No! Episode 5 was Yarndale, wasn't it? Crikey, time flies. So anyway, yes, so yeah, 5 minutes. Beautifully, beautiful orange, and the body of the sock is going to be in one of the gorgeous yarns that the lovely, lovely, lovely Deb from Fondant Fibre, that's she's a British dyer, so Fibre is spelled the British way, R-E, but she sent me a bunch of stuff back in episode 4, I think it was, or maybe 3 even. Yes, so this is one of her yarns, and it's called Kingfisher. And again, it's superwash merino sock wool, 75-25 split. So let's have a look at the ball here. Oh, now this is not a skein I would normally pick. You'll notice the lack of orange, which is why I've used it as added orange for my socks. However, I think the orange goes really well with these colours. When I was looking for which yarns to pick, I was like, ooh, they go really well together. So yeah, Deb, add orange to your Kingfisher. But it is a gorgeous mid blue and some lighter, more turquoisey blues. And then there's these kind of not quite purple, not quite pink. I'm not really sure what colour you'd call the sort of a dirty pink or something. Then there are some genuine purples in there as well. And I balled it up from the skein, but I hadn't really clocked the length of colour on the yarn. So the difference between gradient and self-striping and variegated, I think, is just to do with how long the stretches of colour on the yarn are, on a single thread of yarn. So if I show you how it knits up a bit closer, yeah, you can see it's a variegated, that you get these dapples of yummy, 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 yummy colour in there. Now actually the orange is just whiting out the camera a little bit, so if I do that, you can hopefully, yeah, there we go. You can see the different colours in it a bit better there. And the same on the other side. Yeah, that's a bit better. The orange is so bright, it's making the camera have a fit. And that's the yarn again, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really excited to see these grow. And just look, I mean, it's just such a happy, happy sock. I'm going to be so happy wearing these socks. Oh, the cats are playing. They're adjusting still to life with each other. So I'm looking forward to these. What I might be doing, however, in fact I will be doing, is referencing where on these socks the fit maybe wasn't quite as tight, because I seem to have tiny feet, because every sock pattern I've had to reduce so far. And even this lovely, 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 lovely ribbed sock pattern is still a little slack on my feet. Like, I have a UK size 8.5, which is a European 42, and I have no idea for US. But it means that I am about 10 inches heel to toe and about something like 9.5 around the foot and 12.5 around the instep. There you go, you can make me socks now. Not that you have to or anything, but you could. I'd love to have some. But I just followed the pattern because it was just do this many stitches, and I thought it's ribbed, I'll give it a go. And I still found it was a little loose around the ankle, but I do have skinny wrists and small hands and skinny ankles and small feet. So that didn't surprise me, but I'm thinking I might do a reduction, maybe after the ribbing, reduce it down. Sorry, I'm doing it so I can see it, but of course you can't see it. After the ribbing, reduce it down a bit so it's slightly tighter down to the heel. Then it go up again, sort of here, where it would start to grow around the instep, and and then the heel is actually back here. It's a bit slack. There we go. Tighten it up a bit back. Then the heel, and then full size down to finish. Because the foot fit was absolutely fine. And part of it might just be as well, I was just thinking, so I was doing lots of thinking in my head there, it's a bit boring for you. Obviously normal shop bought socks tend to have lycra in them, so they really are elastic. Oh, crikey. Look, just go in, one of you go in the other room, for crying out loud. They both want to be with me, you see. So I think part of it is I need to get used to knitted socks and the feel of them, because I think they fit fine, they just don't grip as much, and that feels odd. But they were actually a little slack around the ankle, which I do seem to have skinny ankles as well as skinny wrists. So yeah, so I'm going to use those ideas to try and adjust the pattern a little bit, and I'm also doing a fish lips kiss heel to try it out this time around. It's a similar heel, I think, to the one in the pattern, and I've already bought the pattern for $1 off Ravelry. I mean, seriously, so cheap to get an awesome heel pattern, and I'm going to go and try those. Although, having said that, the other socks that I cast on, which is Josh Ricks's Mystic Spiral socks, have an amended version of the Fish Lips Kiss heel in that pattern, with permission from the designer. So now I have two versions of it to try out. Maybe I could do one on each. No, I'll do the normal one in here, and I'll do the Fish Lips Kiss heel as written on the Mystic Spiral socks pattern on the Mystic Spiral socks. Who'd have thought of that, hey? So yeah, and then obviously I'll do the heel and the toe in orange, like I said. And these live in my beautiful bag from Ashley Lynn, who is McPlate Knits. Thank you so much, Ashley Lynn, again. So I'm very happy with that. Yay! Okay, and I think that's all my whips. Yes. Yes. I'm saying I think because I'll just put the ball bands back in here. Because I have another sort of bag to the side here, which I will show you what's in it in a second. But it's not really a work in progress yet. However, I will talk more about that in the next section, which is Stash Love! I have had yet another stash enhancement week. And I'm going to have one next week because I'll have gone to Bakewell in between time, so what are you going to do? This one is partly because Countess Ablaze on Instagram posted a pic of the fact that she was discontinuing some colourways and therefore flogging the custom fibres off cheap, about a third off I think it was, if I remember rightly. So I was like, yeah, okay then, I'll have to get some. She also has a thing on her website for a 10% off coupon. If you choose to sort of share / favourite / what have you on social media. So you have to do it through the little coupon thing on her webpage that pops up. And if you get rid of that and then want to try and find it again, there's a little, in green, there's a little sign that pops up in the... That's my left. So yeah, it must be the bottom left, must be this way around. I suddenly thought, is this... I'm suddenly realising I'm not sure which way around it is when I watch it on the video. So I'm going to say this is bottom left, and then we'll see if I'm right or not. I know I've pointed down to the bottom left corner before, but it's down here that says coupon! And if you click on that, you get a little thing, and you just sort of +1 it or what have you, and you get a 10% coupon code. So I used that with this reduced price fibre to get some gorgeous yumminess. So I went for my colours, the orange, green, brown and blue, which is my colourway, as it were. So I went for something in my colours, but not orange. mainly because I didn't see any orange, and also because I thought, you know what, if I only ever buy orange, then I won't have anything for the orange to go with, like in this, because orange is a really good accent colour. It's a bit much on its own sometimes, or in a little sort of item it works, but yeah. So the other one I got was this gorgeous blue. So it's basically, you know, clouds over a grassy field, really, isn't it? I mean, come on. That just evokes countryside to me massively. You want to go back outside again? Excuse me. Yum. He just likes to make me work for it, doesn't he? So let's talk about them. The green one is called The Exile, and it's from the 12 Caesars collection, Tiberius. If you don't know, the 12 Caesars collection is something that Countess Ablaze has been doing over 2014. Every month is a different Caesar, so it's a bit of Roman history kind of stuff going on. And then there's a few colourways in all of her different sort of, you know, yarns and bases and fibres and all of this stuff. And so this one is called The Exile, and it contains merino, fin and baby alpaca. I asked on Instagram, what's fin? Because it's spelled F-I-N-N, and immediately I thought that she had shaved Finn the human and woven it into fibre, because that's the only time I've ever heard of fin. However, when I went to enter it into my stash on Ravelry, my fibre stash, I typed in fin, and it actually came up with, yeah, there's a kind of sheep that's called like finner something or other, and is often abbreviated to fin. So there we go. Merino, fin and baby alpaca. So yes, super soft, a really nice sheepy smell, which I reckon must come from the fin, because it's quite a earthy, sheepy, musky smell that merino often doesn't have. And it is just gorgeous. It's green with, it's sort of mostly this lovely grass green. There's hints of a paler yellower green, and then there's this lovely sort of darker grey which runs through, which I'm going to guess is a baby alpaca, because I've seen her have black baby alpaca in other mixes before. Very nice. And then the blue, which really is just a beautiful sky vista, really. It has at least 3 blues in there, and then there's a white and again that kind of a dark grey black colour. The mix is Shetland wool, yak and milk protein, so I'm guessing the Shetland is the blue, the yak is maybe the dark, and the milk protein is probably the white. But I could be completely wrong, because I'm literally just guessing. The mix on this is 80% Shetland, 10-10 for yak and milk, and the mix on this one is 40% merino, 40% fin, 20% baby alpaca. They're both absolutely gorgeous. This one, the blue one, almost feels like it's got a bit of silk in it. It's got that similar kind of very almost slippery feel, which may well be the milk protein. I don't know. I've never played with anything with milk protein in before, so I'm sort of guessing as to what impact that's having. And I've not played with yak either. And apparently yak is super soft, and gets softer with washing. I think that was sort of another podcast that mentioned that. And I haven't played with fin either, so they've both got new to me fibres in them, which is always a nice thing, because I love new to me stuff, because that's how I learn. The other sort of stash enhancements that I have are, because I'm getting very excited again. Can you tell? I've had someone send me a lovely parcel! Oh my god! So Sharon in New Zealand, who got in touch and said she wanted to send me something, and I'm like, from New Zealand? Are you crazy? And she's like, I'm fine, I want to do it. And I was like, oh my god, thank you. So she sent me, and I've Instagrammed this as well, because I always Instagram it when I get it, but I'll show you it as well. So she sent me, I'll start with the Fibre. She sent me 2 little bags of this gorgeousness. So yeah, do I have a reputation for orange or something? I don't know where that's come from. And this is silk and merino, and it says 80-20%. I'm assuming that means it's merino plus 20% silk as opposed to 20% merino. But I don't know, is the honest answer, but I'm guessing it's merino with silk. Because I'm guessing the silk is the white sort of strands in it, and the merino is the different oranges, sort of a reddy orange through to a yellowy orange, and everything in between. So soft! Squish, squish, squish. And I've got 2 of those, which is absolutely amazing! 2 little comb tops. There's 50 grams in total there, which I very much look forward to spinning up, and I may see what it looks like combined with the Hilltop Cloud. Not necessarily spinning the 2 together, but maybe plying the 2 together, or making 2 yarns out of them separately and then knitting with them together. You know, there's all those different times and ways you can bring them in together, because obviously the Hilltop Cloud's had quite a dark streak in it as well, similar to the Countess Ablaze stuff. Will often have that grey streak through it to really make the colours pop, I think. Whereas this doesn't have that. This is just bright, which personally I love. But it'd be interesting to see. Excuse me. Yeah, the more I talk, and the more I'm starting to think I'm fighting something off today, which would explain the. Yeah, so there's those lovely, 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 lovely bits of Fibre, but the reason she got in touch and said she wanted to send me something was because she wanted to send me project bags! Oh my god! Oh, I was blown away when I don't even know where to start. Look at this beastie! Fills the screen! Woo! This thing is huge! Look at it! This is a proper jumper size project bag. Now I'm using this one at the moment, you might have guessed, for my Uber blanket square, because the needles are straight and so long that they don't curl up and wrap into a smaller bag. So it's perfect timing. Thank you very much, Sharon, for that perfect timing for a jumper size bag. That's a sweater bag for Americans, to fit this project in, and it's even got this gorgeous lining, which I don't think I shared on Instagram, of ferns. It's a very subtle fern motif on the inside. And I don't know what the flowers are on the front, but they're gorgeous and bright and really bold stripes and just lovely, 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 lovely. So I really liked this, and she made them. She made them from fabric, from New Zealand fabric. I think it was Kiriana, she said, Kiriana, something like that. And I kind of was like, what's Kiriana? Like thinking it was like maybe a type, like cotton or something. And I googled it, and it was a brand, a New Zealand brand of fabric. So I was like, oh, New Zealand fabric, New Zealand person made a New Zealand bag and sent it to me from New Zealand. Yeah! The other side of the planet, people. So, thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much. And then a medium-sized bag as well. And this one has the kiwi bird on it, a native flightless bird from New Zealand, whose nostrils are actually right down at the tip of its beak there, which is unusual for a bird. Most birds tend to have the nostrils up at the top of the beak, near the skull. And it pokes its bill into the ground and is smelling for things like worms and stuff in the soil. As I say, it's flightless. Yes, I was a bird geek as a child. My sister was really into it, and anything my sister did I had to do. So the kiwi is a famous bird for that reason. It's also got what looks like a sparrow on the back. I don't know if this is a New Zealand sparrow, for example, but it looks very much like the kind of sparrows that we have in the United Kingdom. There is also a bird who I am not sure for the name of which I am not sure of the name. You know what I mean. I was wondering if it was something like a caraway, but I think it's a slightly wrong shape for that. But I'm not sure, or a cassowary or something. There's also sheep, which is perfect. And there is as well this awesome lizard, I'm thinking iguana. And then there's all the awesome patterns as well, which look like they could be sort of maybe Maori inspired designs or something like that. My sister went to New Zealand years ago and she brought me back a little, I should have got it out, shouldn't I? I didn't think. She brought me back a couple of things. Well, no, she brought me back a hand-carved bone arrowhead as on a leather thong as a little necklace thing, which I wore for a bit. But I have to remember to put this on. This is my I'm dressing up fancy, so I'm actually wearing an accessory thing. I'm learning, people, I'm learning. You know, wearing stuff like this on my head is not usual for me, but when I grew out my hair, I suddenly needed to do something with it. And my aunt, no, my grandma, my granny, I call my grandma. My granny got me, I think it was, I'm not sure if she, I can't remember, I think it was her that gave it to me. Oh dear. But anyway, I also have a tiny little green tiki, which is like a little sort of mini monster kind of thing, but it's like a good look monster. It's like a spirit or something. And it makes me think of, if you're a Studio Ghibli fan, and quite frankly if you're not, then go and watch one of their films and become one, because everybody must love Studio Ghibli because they are amazing. I mourn the fact that they've stopped producing new films because Hayao has retired. I'm sorry, I don't know his name well enough to be able to try and pronounce it. I know it to see it, I can't remember it to say it. But they made a film called Princess Mononoke, which is one of my top films ever. And in that, they have little tree spirits, and their heads go tilt, 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 and then they go and they shake and it rattles like there's got a bean inside. But it reminds me of that, in that kind of slightly impish, slightly scary looking face, but friendly, happy spirit. And it's called a tiki, and I think that's sort of carved out of jade or something like that, or possibly green plastic, I can't remember. But again, so there's two little things, and they remind me, they remind me of these kind of swirling. The arrowhead is kind of this similar leaf-shaped swirling pattern, but not. These are more motifs rather than actual. I wouldn't say they're actual Maori patterns, and they might not even be anything to do with Maori patterns. I mean, there's weaving on there as well, you can see, but they look like they are some kind of traditional craft design anyway, even if not Maori. So yeah, it makes me so happy when people send me things, and I feel a little bit guilty because I think, you know, well, actually, JB, who I chat with a lot and has her podcast, JB's Fibre podcast on YouTube, was chatting with me recently, and she was talking about... Wait, no. Oh, I'm having one of those remembering the wrong person in the conversation moments again, aren't I? Who was it that was talking about it? Give me a second. So JB is awesome, and you should go and watch her podcast. And we have been talking recently that we've been talking about something else, which is an idea for our podcasts. What I'm thinking of, however, is actually somebody wrote in the Paying It Forward thread in my group, where I asked people to suggest ideas and ways that we can pay it forward, because I was looking for inspiration. And I think it's the last post in the thread, when I checked it earlier anyway, and it was about matching up people who like to give with people who like to receive. And I kind of thought, well, that made me feel a little bit better, because I thought, well, I know that I'm someone that likes to receive, basically, because it makes me so, so, so happy. I've just realised how that sounds. Ignore any possible double entendre in that. Yeah? Let's just move on. Let's just move on. Gifts are awesome. I really like getting gifts. And I felt a little bit guilty because I was like, so many people are getting me things, and it's amazing, and I don't want anyone to stop ever. Because I've occasionally gone, oh my gosh, so many people have offered to do this, like make me a bag. And someone went, oh well, if you don't need any more. And I'm like, no! No. That doesn't mean don't do it. I will love your bag just as much. I'm just overwhelmed that everybody wants to make me them, and I didn't want this person. I think this is someone who got in touch a while back, before I'd even shown Ashley Lynn's bag, and the bag that I haven't brought with me today because it's got just the cast on but not worked on socks, which was Amelia's bag. That she made. So I was like, oh well, actually I know someone else has made or is making me a bag, just in case you wanted it to be like, because they were offering, and I hadn't at that time. I was saying I didn't have any bags. It might be like, oh, I've made you a bag because you don't have any and it's special. Whereas if it's like, actually I now have 2 bags since you offered, it might not be as special. So I was like, just so you know. And they were like, oh well, and I was like, no, please do make me a bag. So if you're still thinking about it, please do make me a bag. But I needed to sort of say that I had received one since someone else had beaten them to it. But yeah, as I say, I felt a little bit guilty about all these people sending me bags that they made or bought. But honestly, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. So I've had lovely people making comments about when I talked about paying it forward, which is a similar kind of thing, around kind of saying, you know, they get so much out of me podcasting for you guys. And you know, it's that thing of when you do something and you enjoy it, you kind of think, well, you don't kind of register that other people are getting something out of it, which is why often people undercharge for when they're self-employed and doing something that they like, which again is very relevant to crafty people. Because we get into our minds that, oh, I'm doing something I like, so no one's going to really want to pay for it, or I'm doing something I like, this is just for me, no one's going to really get anything out of watching this, despite the fact that I've had people get in touch and say they've got something out of this. And so I've had some lovely people say, do you know what, James, you're just podcasting, is you putting your stuff out there, and other people are putting their stuff out there, which is sending bags. And there is something in that, and part of me is kind of like, you know what, I could just really embrace that and go with, yeah, this is Sharon putting her love out into the world, and this is podcast is me putting my love out into the world. I don't have to pay postage though for my podcast. But New Zealand people. So that was a really nice thing for somebody to say, and yes, I would. Again, I'm kind of bouncing around a few different things at the moment, aren't I? With paying it forward, I would want it to come out of something that I want to do. And one of the things that I've decided, although I've mentioned it a lot now, is I think if I do something, and I have a plan that I think I've mentioned before that I need to follow up with beadroom jewellery. But if I do something, it's quite possible that I won't mention it on the podcast. Unless it's sort of really relevant to podcast it. I won't just podcast it because it's something that I'm doing, because there's a point at which I kind of went, you know what, actually, there's something about paying it forward and not then telling everyone, oh, look at me! Yeah, the charity work is somewhat devalued when you tell everyone about it. And it's not always, because there's arguments for publishing charities that you support and stuff, and getting the word out there and publicising those charities and the work that they do, but you can usually tell the difference. And so if there's something that I want to publicise, it might be I found this great charity, or I found this cool way to pay it forward, or I really like this idea someone's had, like matching people who want to give with people who want to receive gifts. And the end of this waffle would be just to stop repeating myself. So, thank you again, Sharon, for these gorgeous bags. Aren't these bags amazing, people? If she doesn't sell them, and I haven't seen a link or anything, she totally could, right? These are fantastic. Oh, lining on this one is the same. It's that gorgeous sort of ferny motif, which again is a very New Zealandy thing. I think ferns being linked to New Zealand. I'm not sure why. Is the fern the symbol for the All Blacks? Is a black fern the thing for the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team? Sorry. I don't know, but I didn't show you the bag earlier. Well, I didn't show you either the bags earlier, but I didn't show you what's in the bag earlier either, because it was a work in progress, and then I ripped it out, so it's no longer a work in progress. In fact, the entirety of the work in progress is this, and this is a provisional cast on. So it's not even the yarn I'm using, it's some cheap ass acrylic I got free with the magazine someone else gave me. So it's cheap ass acrylic that I didn't even pay the cheap ass amount for. But a little provisional cast on that I've done. There we go. So for this project is the Bartley pattern test knit that I'm doing. Oh, the other thing I'm struggling with today is remembering what I've said before and what's happened in the last week, because it feels like I did the other podcast like yesterday, and that everything I have to show you I've already shown you. Very weird. So that's basically just a long-winded way of me saying I hope I haven't repeated myself a lot today. But in here is the pattern. Some bamboo needles that I was using for testing my gauge. And that's because the pattern calls for a bigger... Just trying to get my thoughts in order there. Oh, I am struggling today. Trying to get my thoughts in order. The pattern called for a larger size needle than these ones. And I did a test swatch. Oh, and I ripped that out. And it was obviously too big. So I was like, right, okay. And I dropped down. I was going to drop down one size, but I accidentally picked up the wrong needles from another project bag, because all the sizes below it were in different project bags. So I grabbed the wrong project bag to steal the needles from. But it was good, because it was almost the right size. And I was like, yeah, that's close enough. And then I knit up so I knit up the swatch. Oh no, which one is it? It's this one. I knit up the swatch. There we go. So you can see the colour yarn I'm making out of it. Woo! Baby! No, Rory, I'm not letting you back in again, you can wait. With a little provisional cast on, testing my swatch there. And it looked alright, and I bound off very poorly, so I was a bit like, oh, it's a bit scruffy, but I sort of thought maybe it was the bind off because of that. I mean, I'll show you again, you can just see how scruffy that bind off is, really, and it was stretching the rib out a bit and stuff. In fact, I ripped out the first bind off I did, because I just did all knitted, and it was completely stretching it out, so... Folks, there's a reason to bind off in rib if you've ribbed something. And then I started to knit it up on my interchangeable circular metal needles. And I got a chunk of stuff done, because I start with the gorgeous, gorgeous cabling at the top there. So I was starting the cabling. And I got a chunk done, and I looked at it and I went, something's wrong. And I realised, oh, I've gone and mucked up the cabling. I for one set I did left slanting instead of right slanting or something. So rather than weaving in, I just had the cables all flying over to one side because all the cables were like 3 in a row left slanting. And I mean, it still looked okay, but I was like, no, this is a test knit. I'm not gonna half-ass it. And actually, I was looking at it, and the edge, the edging of the cabling was really slappy, and I went, my gauge was kind of slappy, my cabling is kind of slappy, and I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I'm really finding the yarn on these needles really slippy. And when I first started making these scarves, when I did the green one originally, I was on metal needles at first, and it was painfully slow going. And then someone suggested switching to bamboo and just sharpen some bamboo DPNs that I had using sandpaper or what have you. And I've thought since, I could have maybe tried a pencil sharpener. I've not tried that, but I thought I might try it for these ones, because these were free with the same magazine that the yarn came from. So I thought I could try pencil sharpening them to get a better point on them. I don't know. If I try it, I'll let you know. And I was like, you know what? It's the needles and the yarn combo, isn't it? It's really slippy, and that's making my knitting messy. So I grabbed the bamboo needles and made another test swatch using the ripped out yarn from the swatch I made. I made a bigger swatch, you can tell, originally, on the bigger needles. And you can see, I think, if I hold them both up side by side and give it a second to focus. It's focusing on me still, come on. There we go. It's not great, but it's maybe a bit better. Okay, well maybe it's not obvious on picture, I'm not sure. But the one there with the provisional cast on is the metal needles, and the just burnt orange one is the wooden needles. But certainly to me, up close, I can really tell the difference. Really, really tell the difference. The metal one, the stitches are all misshapen, but different sizes. They're sort of lumpy and bumpy and poking out and got sort of odd gaps in the fabric, whereas the wooden one, the stitches are all pretty uniform, they're in a line, they make this really nice clear ribbing, whereas on here it kind of just, you can see right through it, can't you? Yeah, you can see the wall behind it, it looks so gappy, it's like a waffle. Whereas here, although that you can sort of see through, it's a slightly, the ribbing I think really pops out a bit more. So yeah, long story short, never when it's me. I was like, yeah, totally need to use bamboo needles. Now Katie, the designer, replied to the thread that I have created for this test along in my group, so let's just explain that. In my podcast group, Dancing Geek podcast, Dancing Geek's all one word, there is a thread called Bartley Pattern Test Knit, and it's just documenting my little test knitting process of this pattern, because I'm excited. And I'd written in there about sort of this little stuff that I've just been telling you, and the bit that I added in there was that the fact that I wanted to use wooden needles and the pattern asks for circular needles was, well, I need to get some wooden circulars. Needle shopping! So I went online, and because I've got Knit Pros already for my interchangeables, I thought, well, I'll just grab a pair of needles in the right size of the Knit Pro Symphonies, because I've always wanted an excuse to go and buy them because they're so pretty, because they're multicoloured wood, which is awesome. They managed to dye the different rings of the wood different colours and then bore it as a slant to get these kind of stripy wood needles. They look awesome anyway. And so I was like, there you go, the minimal excuse that I needed to buy them. And Katie had said you can actually start on straights and then move to circulars later, but I am sticking with, I want to use the same needles all the way through the project because I don't want my gauge to suddenly shift. I would rather get it right and then stick with the same needles through the whole project, just to have that. It's like quality control, you know. It probably would be fine to start on the straights, but yeah. And quite frankly, it's Wednesday today, and I'm going to Bakewell on Saturday, as I've mentioned several times, because I'm very excited about that as well. And if they have not arrived by the time I get to Bakewell on Saturday, I will be checking out needles at Bakewell. And I might hold off just for a late arrival on the Saturday when I get back, so then I'll go on Sunday, and if I don't have them by Sunday morning, and then there won't be a delivery on Sunday obviously, so if I haven't had them in the Saturday's delivery whilst I've been out, then I will almost definitely buy some from Bakewell. And I'll have 2 pairs, the same size, of wooden needles. But you know what, it's clearly a common size for me because I have several projects using that size needle, so can't have too many, right? Can't have too many of anything knitting related. And on a random aside, because I don't have enough of those in my podcast, the little extra bit of yarn that I've balled up, come on camera, work with me here, there we go, has this very cool technique where you can see it's got to like wound one way and round the other. Now this I stole from the last episode, or the penultimate episode, of Dark Matter Knits, which is by Elizabeth, I want to say Green Musselman, it's something like that, Elizabeth GM, who is the designer behind Kung Fu Knits, which is this really cool knitting book for little boys, getting little boys into hand knit stuff, as in receiving hand knit presents. So little presents you can hand knit for little boys that they will like. So it's Kung Fu Knits, and it looks awesome, quite frankly, and I am somewhat tempted to try and make an adult size martial arts kit. You know, in the future, if I run out of things that I want to make that aren't quite so insane as wearing children's clothes. Because quite frankly, it would be awesome. I could have them as like pyjamas around the house. That would be very cool. Suddenly not seeming like such a crazy idea. But yeah, so, and she explains how she winds, hand winds her little bobbles. What was really good was her technique that she explains accounts for how yarn tends to get stretched when you're winding it, and she releases the yarn every so often so that it can bounce back. So this yarn that's wound up is not stretched at all, and I thought that's really clever. Because all of my balls of yarn, the yarn is always stretched out whilst I'm winding, because I'm winding it off a skein or a ball and there's tension on it, so it's always being slightly stretched. And then there's no way for it to really compress, because once it comes off the ball winder, although it does slightly, it's fairly dense, so it tends to not have much give in it. And it's a bit of an art with the ball winder, trying to take that tension out but still have enough for it to hold its shape, because if you have it too loose it just goes really floppy and falls out and disintegrates straight away, which a handspun roll doesn't do. But you know, if you're about to just cast on a project, just use your ball winder and off you go, kind of thing. But yes, so needles coming in. And the reason for mentioning this now is because, as you've seen the yarn already, but this is, I bought a load of yarn for it basically. That was why I was going to show it in the stash section, was because I got a load of yarn. So this is West Yorkshire Spinners Blue Faced Leicester. It's burnt orange, so it's not quite bright orange, but it is bright all the same. It is gorgeous, gorgeous orange, and this is also a British wool. 100% British wool, spun in, well, it says made in Yorkshire by West Yorkshire Spinners. So again, it's a very British One, the idea here being that the original pattern was made using American yarn, American yarn. Oh dear, I can't thread it again. Oh no, it's just Stitch running around meowing to himself. But that's also been discontinued, like I said before, and I didn't buy any of that in the end. So I got this from the UK, so I am test knitting with some UK yarn, so that anybody Europe side, it is a German pattern after all, that wants to see what it's like in a yarn before they knit it up, can see my test version in a British yarn. That's my excuse for buying a cheaper yarn, because basically the postage is redonkulously less. Also, this is not an independent dyer's yarn, this is a slightly more commercial yarn, sort of more mass-produced yarn. But I've wanted to get something from West Yorkshire Spinners because they're a little local company in terms of UK based. Which as a Brit is, you know, it's like I'll see Americans going, it's all American, and I go, why do you care? And I think, well actually yeah, I don't care if something's all American, but I do care if something's all British. So apparently I am a little bit patriotic. But I think it's more to do with knowing that there's people nearby you that are into the same sort of stuff, that there's people you can connect with that are sort of in your geographical area as well, because the internet makes it awesome for connecting with people online. I have had people from all over getting in touch, which is just amazing. But there's something nice about knowing that you're not the only person for hundreds and hundreds of miles in any direction that cares about this. Which is what going to festivals is awesome as well, because you meet loads of people who are just as walnutty as you. Okay, so yeah, so I've got 4 skeins of this in this bag with room to spare. Thank you, Sharon, again for this awesome size bag. What's that? Is that attached to my? Oh no, that's the one I ripped out earlier. It just looked the same because I used Elizabeth's Dark Matter Knits hand wrapping technique. You use 2 fingers and then you use 2 fingers. I'll let her show you, it's fine. You can go and watch her podcast then. So, swatches are done, gauge is sorted, waiting for the needles to come in. And as I said, I did do a bit of the cabling and then I ripped it out because it looked naff. So, not quite a work in progress. Not quite needle adjacent either. But it is a stash enhancement because I bought the wool. So the last 2 things to mention are more patterns that you guys have sent me. Thank you. So Kimberlolly, who has the Giving Flower podcast. I think there's another one called The Giving Tree, which is why I had to pause there. But no, Kimberly is The Giving Flower. She is an American who is living in Germany with her husband, and she's a teacher there. I think she teaches English, Spanish, and was it IT? It really surprised me because I'm not used to thinking of teachers as teaching that many different subjects. Like in primary school in the UK, the teacher teaches everything, and in secondary school, the teacher tends to teach 1 subject, or maybe 2 if they're very, very related. But she was teaching like English, yes, Spanish, oh, okay, cool, and then IT or something, and I was like, okay then. But she has loads of designs on Ravelry, which I hadn't realised. So check them out. But she sent me her Batleth pattern. And for those of you who are not as nerdy as I, or as geeky as I should say, I think in this instance, and are not have not watched hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of Star Trek, then you will maybe not know that a bat'leth is a weapon of the Klingon race from Star Trek. So if you have seen it and you're thinking, oh, maybe I know what you mean, It's the big curved thing with the two handles, and they kind of go so it's a bit like staff fighting, but with a blade on it. And you have to do this and frown, because they have like a permanent frown. That's their makeup. So there you go. That's a Klingon fighting with a bat'leth, or alternatively me making a fool of myself. Happily, no, I'm not complaining. So yeah, so she sent me that along, and she was like, oh, I'm not sure if you're a fan of, but it's like, yay, I'm a total geek, I'm a nerd, so yay, Star Trek is awesome. I love Star Trek and Star Wars, you can't make me choose. And yeah, so I'm super, super excited. It's actually a shawl, just to be clear, it's actually a shawl, but if you lie it out flat, it has the shape and colouring of a bat'leth, but then you can wear it as this shawl with this interesting like spots of colour and shaping to it, but when it wears a shawl it just looks like a shawl, but it's interesting. So I thought that was a really, really clever design idea. And there was actually a knit along / giveaway where that was the prize, and I was like, oh, enter, and I didn't get it, and I was like, oh. And then it turns out I'm friends with the designer. She just sent me the pattern. I was like, yay! So thank you, Kimberly. And I'm very excited because she's told me I should go and have a look at her patterns. So the other thing was JB, and this is JB for definite now, over at JB's Fibre podcast, who got in touch with me after I think episode 1 or 2. And I just got chatting with, we've just been chatting back and forth on Rav. So send me a message, guys, I do reply. It might take me a while because every now and again I'll have a spate where I don't have time to really sit and do messages, because for me to do messages I have to sit and do them. I can't just like usually whip off a quick response. It's not my process, which is why I don't tend to do forums and stuff. I'm not very good at participating in other podcast forums. I try, but I really have to sit. So yesterday I had a Ravelry day where I sat and did all the forums and messages and stuff and Instagram messages, and that was just all my stuff. Thank you, guys. And then I tried to go and sort of get involved in other people's podcast forums and stuff, but I'm really bad at it because I have to really struggle to think. Whereas if I just want to talk, as you can tell, super, super easy. I can talk. When it comes to trying to write stuff out, I'm not as fluent in my expression, and I think I come across, I know that I come across inaccurately in text because I use a lot of gesture, and I use a lot of facial expression, and I use a lot of intonation when I communicate in speech, and all of that gets lost. So I use a lot of emoticons and things like underlining, bold, italics and punctuation and stressing and stuff in my writing to try and get some of that in, and things like slash or hashtag sarcasm and stuff like that, or slash rant, just so that people kind of have a bit more of a hint of what I'm trying to say, because otherwise I just write the words out, and you can imagine that if everything I delivered in this tone of voice was exactly what it looks like when you're seeing words, it just wouldn't make sense, and in fact worse, people can totally read it the wrong way. So if someone's sensitive to something, then I will blunder in and upset people with my, but it's totally not meant to be like that, and if I'd said it out loud you'd know it wasn't meant to be like that, and it wouldn't have even been a trigger, but oh my god, I'm so sorry. So I just find it stressful, whereas chatting is so much easier. What was I going on about? Forums. JP! Send me messages, guys. I love it. JB has, for a while now, been accumulating this parcel to send over. It is very exciting and very generous. She's over in Canada, so again, the shipping is not going to be cheap on this. In fact, I think she said I have to wait till November, because she has to wait for November for the next paycheck to come through before she can afford to send it to me. I'm just watching because Raw is right next to the camera. Can you see his tail just there in the bottom corner? There we go! You want to come sit with me, Raw? Yes. Okay, come on. Yay! Oh, and I'm not letting you out again. You can just meow for my audience. Oh, and part of the parcel was a pattern on Ravelry, and she decided to send me the pattern early. So I've already got that. So I got that from JB as well. So super, 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 super amazing excited. And I feel like I'm going slightly now. I feel like I'm spending a lot of time phasing out. So I'm going to just move on. Community is the next section. He'll be quiet in a second. I am struggling. Oh dear. I'm going to do a quick run through on the last sections because I'm tired. And I'm going on focus, which tells me that yes, I'm fighting something. So, super quick. I was in 2 VKNs this week, which were amazing. The first was the Sword of a VKN, which is obviously from the Sword of a Knitter podcast. That's Sword. S-W-O-R-D. In English, it doesn't work as a pun, but in American English, Sword of a Knitter and Sort of a Knitter sound the same, because the T's come out more like D's. So, Sword of a Knitter that was Australian, I think. And Sword of a Knitter sound the same. It's a pun. Why am I telling you this? Oh my god. So I went on the Sword of a VKN, which is again Josh, and it had Bunnyfish, which is Heather, and Lindsay from Entirely Crafty, Lindsay, and the Entirely Crafty podcast was on it. I don't think I'm forgetting anybody. I think it was just those 3. It was at 1 AM UK time. So I had stayed up especially for it, but what happened was this week it was shifted to the Friday evening for US, which meant it was Saturday morning here, and that was good, because normally it would be Friday morning, and I have an appointment on Friday mornings, so I couldn't really stay up till 3 like I did with this. Because I have to get off the next day. Yeah. So anyway, it was Saturday morning. I wasn't getting up, so I could stay up late and do it. So that was really cool because it meant I actually got to chat with 3 podcasts that I watch. So it was really cool. And I believe you guys also watch my podcast, or have watched bits, or watched some. I'm not entirely sure what. But all 3 of you have mentioned my podcast to me at least at some point, either through your podcast or separately. So that was really cool, and it was really odd because Lindsay and Heather were both in exactly the same place they'd normally be for recording their podcast. And Josh and I weren't. I was chatting from my laptop in the front room. So I had my yarn stash behind me, but the lighting is awful. But that's because I needed to be next to a computer, which I'm not in this setup, and out of the way for my other half, and my only other computer is set up and attached to the TV in the living room, so that wasn't going to be any good. Yeah, but it felt like I was talking to the podcast, was what I was thinking to say there. Oh, geez, sorry guys. Do you know what? I said to someone recently, never apologise in your podcast, you just don't need to. Because I'm not going to do that again. But I'm acknowledging that this is not quite as fast-paced as it normally is, so it may not be much longer, because it might just not have as much content in it. But anyway, I'll keep talking about stuff rather than the podcast, because that's less interesting. It's like meta podcasting, where you podcast about the podcast. Oh, now I'm podcasting about the podcast. Oh my god! Inception! Okay. But yeah, it meant I got to actually chat to people that I'd seen in their podcast, and they were talking back to me. So it's like real live podcasting. It was so cool. And it was nice to actually just have a little conversation with these guys who I've sort of got to know over the last couple of months. The other VKN that I went to, which was at a slightly more reasonable time, start time of 9 PM UK time, was the FO and Die one that was actually on the Saturday evening. So I had Friday night up late, and then I got up late on the Saturday, and then I had Saturday night up late doing another VKN. So this one had Dave and Ellie, and Rebecca, who is British Bee Knits on Instagram and I think Ravelry, and she has an Etsy shop under that. So it's British_BEA_knits. That's her Instagram name. But she came up on the Hangout as Rebecca. So although I recognised her face, I couldn't work out who she was. So then I asked her after a bit of time had passed. And the guys were like, oh, she's still at it on Instagram. And I'm like, oh my god, you know, I've totally had conversations with you on Instagram. I'm so sorry. But I have to admit, I really was like so excited to meet so many new people that when I first started, I was just friending everybody and talking to everybody. And I had a little bit of almost like person whiteout. I just couldn't... Is that a dodgy thing to say? I couldn't remember who people were, and I couldn't connect Instagram names to Ravelry names and stuff. And I'm still matching that up, but I don't feel guilty about it anymore because I realise, you know what, I'm only human. I felt bad about it originally because I was like, oh my god, all these people that I'm talking to, and I don't even remember who they are. I feel like my shawl's starting to really sag, so let's just because I'm getting a bit chillier again. There we go, that's better. But yeah, so we were chatting, and we went till something ridiculous, like 1:30 in the morning or something silly. And it's possible that Dave and I are a really bad influence on each other. So poor Rebecca. Rebecca and Ellie both got broken several times. Not just by us, they managed to break each other into fits of giggles as well. But I did feel guilty when Ellie actually had to go and step out of the room for a breather. Sorry, Ellie. So yeah, so I had a great time actually having real-time video conversations with some knitters, and that's something I've never done before. I've never done video Skyping before, or anything like that. I've done audio Skype, but I don't think I've done video Skype. And I wasn't even sure, like I'd spilled water on my laptop earlier that day. So I wasn't sure if my laptop would even work, and then I wasn't sure whether my laptop would be compatible with the latest version of Google Hangouts because it's an old laptop and it's running Linux, it's running Ubuntu. And all of this stuff, so I was like, this may not work, but it did. It all just worked flawlessly. The camera worked and everything, and I was so relieved because it meant I got to do Hangouts. Sorry, I thought I just saw Stitch somewhere dangerous in the kitchen, but then I just heard a thump, so he's gone down to the floor. And yeah, VKNs are awesome, guys. So if you are sort of UK way and you would like to jump in on a VKN, then come and join me at the FO and Die one. Oh yeah, there we go. He's in the kitchen, clambering all over the surface. Nah. This is why we don't leave out things like sharp knives and food on the side of the table anymore. Yeah, FO and Die on Saturday. It was 9 o'clock last time. I haven't seen the latest announcement for it. It's going to be in his next podcast because I was chatting with him on Instagram and he said he's going to announce the next VKN on his podcast again. But if you go to their group on Ravelry, there will be a thread somewhere for the VKN date and time and stuff. Do come along and join in. It's brilliant. We had a right laugh. It's fair to say that it was not child friendly, but it is after the watershed, so that's fine. And if you have a love for the surreal, then that's even better. I don't know that I'll get to go on the sort of a VKN again, just because of the timing of it. However, there is a week coming up where I don't have my Friday morning appointment. It's therapy. I don't know why I'm not just saying that. one of my one of my regular sessions. Oh my god, someone's actually phoning me whilst I'm filming my podcast. That's so rude. Hello? It's spam! Ugh. This is what I do when I get a spam call, I just leave it. It costs them a few pence extra. And then it comes through not on an 08 number, so I'll block it afterwards. Because I have all my 08 numbers and unknown numbers blocked on my phone already, so now they started ringing from random numbers. Anyway, chances are I'm not going to edit that out either, so you just enjoyed watching me answer the phone. Oh yeah, and the ringtone, it is meant to be funny. Just saying. Yeah, but I have one of my weekly therapy appointments is on a Friday morning, which is why I won't be able to do a regular appearance at the sort of a VKN. However, half term's coming up and I don't have a Friday morning appointment, so I will probably be in the week of half term over here in the UK, which is probably something like the week of the 27th of October. Somewhere around there, last week of October somewhere. So maybe the week after next, something like that. So if you're American and you want to come say hi in a VKN, let's go for the VKN. Shall I check? Shall I actually check the date? Let's check. Because it's a Thursday night normally. I think of it as a Friday morning, but actually, you know, it is a Thursday night because I stay up late rather than going to bed early. So it will be the 30th. Yeah, the day before Halloween, because that's the week. Yeah, that's the week of the 27th, and I don't have it on that morning. So, if you're US based and you don't want and you can't come and see us on a Saturday sort of afternoon, which is what it would be, somewhere between 1 and 4 p.m. onwards, then the Friday evening one, which is usually Thursday evening one, which is usually 7 o'clock for Josh's sort of a VKN, on the 30th of October, I'm planning to go and do that. It's in my diary on Friday morning because it's 1 a.m. here. Right, okay, let's put the phone away again. So, yeah, I thought I was going to whiz through this. I can't. It's an impossibility for me to get through things quickly. So the other thing, I haven't brought the flyer for it, whatevs, is the Bakewell wool gathering this Saturday up in Bakewell, the 18th and 19th, so it's whole weekend. There's going to be a meetup, and I already have a few people that have said they are definitely going to be there. So there is Claire from Student Knits, there is Zena from Little Yellow Uke podcasts, there is Claire from Natural Born Dyers who's going to try and pop along. There's at least somebody else who I'm forgetting and I apologise. My brain's gone addles and I clearly haven't done enough notes for where my brain's at today. But yes, on the Saturday I've gone for 12 noon and I've just gone for just inside the main entrance, out of the way of the doors. Yeah, that last bit's important because it's a pet peeve, as you know. So just because I don't know the location at all, I've never been before, I can't really say, oh, by the lamppost or whatever, and there isn't a map for this like there was for Yarndale, so they could say the Instagram meetup at Yarndale was by the big red bus stop, which, by the way, was a really inconspicuous, no. Is inconspicuous the one where you don't notice it? A really unnoticeable bus stop for a big red bus, not a bus stop which is big and red. Which did leave me walking around in circles for a little while until I asked someone for help. And they went, yeah, it's here. And I was like, oh, I thought the big red bus stop was going to be big and red. No, the bus is big and red. But yeah, there's no map, so there's no way for me to do that or anything. So I've just said inside the main entrance, out of the way of the doors. I will be fairly obvious. I will have my bright orange badge on. I will look like this in terms of my face, and I will probably be wearing something bright orange and knitted, or something that you've seen me wear in the podcast, because I kind of feel like it's a must. Like, I have to wear a hand knit when I go to a wool festival. Like, if you've turned up without wearing one, like, where was it? I went somewhere recently and I didn't have any hand knit on, and it was commented on. I was just like, what? I have a lot of jeans and t-shirts. I've only been knitting properly for about 6 months, guys. Give me a break. I haven't yet got to the point where all of my wardrobe is hand knit. I will get there. Well, no, probably not really. But yes, so love you to come and say hi. You can just turn up, but even if you just think you're going to turn up, it would be lovely if you could post in the thread, just so that we've got an idea whether or not it's worth hanging around for a bit before finding somewhere to sit and eat or what have you, because that's probably what we'll be doing. And talking and hugging, for anyone that's into hugging. But I imagine we'll have to go and find somewhere. So I will then post online if I can get reception signal to do that on the Rav group, so that people know where we are. But yeah, obviously I won't want to just hang around on the off chance that somebody who hasn't even sort of got in touch is maybe going to show up. So if you're a maybe, post. And that way I know if it's, I'll go, oh okay, well we'll hang here for 5 minutes, or I'll go find somewhere and then I'll come back and see if anyone's there. That kind of thing. I don't know, you know, that usual kind of trying to meet up thing. It's a bit awkward logistics when it's not where you're actually going to sit, but hey hey, we'll see what happens. There's a bit of making it up on a day, guys. A couple of other things. I don't know if I said this is community section, by the way. This is now the community section. I had somebody on the group suggest making a page. Well, no, I think they said a thread, and I thought, I think a page would be a better idea for this. For UK dyers. So it's like a little resource that people can go to if they're interested in UK dyers. So this person was based in Norway. Hi Norway! I apologise, I can't remember the name of the person that wrote it down. My note taking this week sucks. I kept forgetting and then afterwards going, oh, I was supposed to write something down, and writing half a note down, and then I didn't do my research this morning because I just sat and looked at Instagram because I felt crappy. But hi, thanks for watching, Norway person. And they were like, you know, yeah, so it's still postage. I reckon it must be cheaper to post from the UK to Norway than it is from the US to Norway. So I'd imagine the postage must be cheaper for UK dyers for Europeans than US dyers. Because I thought it was something like 4 or 5 quid as opposed to 14, 15 quid basically. So yeah, so I thought that was a really cool idea. So if you have any UK dyers that you love and you would like to recommend, comments, show notes, comments either in YouTube or Ravelry would be awesome. What I would really, really like is if you could write a little mini review of them as well. It doesn't have to be anything major, just a few words on, not on sort of the generic, they do fibre and yarn and yeah, that's not interesting. What's interesting is I had to buy their so let's say I was doing Countess Ablaze, who I will obviously be adding up. I had to get her the Exile because it was super cheap, and I love the greens. They look like, I love the grassy greens. So it's like why I bought it, and I'm being honest, I bought it because it was dirt cheap. You know, that's the number one reason I went and checked out the shop again, because I've already got a load of stuff from her. But then it was like sale, and I'm like, more stuff then, alright then. Particularly because it was being discontinued. I'd be more likely to say something else for Lindsay because she's my friend, so I can't be something else to say for her. Like, Lindsay is the most amazing person on the planet and you must go and buy from her shop. I'll also say the same thing for Deb, probably. who I'm going to get to meet on Saturday. Yeah, that's it, Deb. Deb from Fun and Fibre's coming to the meet along, yeah, because she doesn't have a stall. Claire does, but Deb doesn't, so she's coming to the meetup. Yay! And yeah, so it's that kind of thing. It's or like with a little photo of your favourite thing from their shop, or you know, I absolutely love the brightness of her colours. What makes that particular dye stuff unique for you, or why you would recommend them to a friend, or just something like that. It doesn't need to be like the copy and pasted blurb off a website that kind of goes, James's Yarns sells yarn and fibre for all occasions, varying from lace weight to the super bulky, and yeah, whatever. Indie dyers from the UK and why you love them. So I will be doing that for all the ones that I've mentioned, so everyone I bought from at Yarndale, everyone that I've bought from and shown you anyway from other stuff, all my stash enhancements and what have you. But it'd be really lovely to have... Yeah, you tell him, Roy. You're the boss. We're still getting used to Rory being the boss. And Rory's not quite used to the idea of cuddling with Stitch yet, bless him. Yeah, we have a snuggle, there we go. Yeah. It'd be lovely to get other people's thoughts on it as well, so some of the dyers might have a couple of different reviews and stuff, and then I'll put it all on a page I'll edit. I will take on that role of editing this page. So if you think of something again in the future, you can send me a message, stick it in the show notes. It doesn't matter if it isn't even for this episode, you know, it's show notes, comments, even if it's not for this episode, because I'll just read it and I'll know what to do with it. If you are an indie dyer, hi FO and Dye, hi Dave and Ellie, and Deborah and Lindsay and anyone else that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Rebecca has a store. So Rebecca as well, I think she's a dyer. Hi Rebecca. Then feel free to advertise yourself to me so that I add you as well, you know, let's not be shy. I've had some people in the introductions thread actually, you know, be ever so shy in that sense. They kind of go, oh yes, I also have a podcast, but there's no link to it. And I'm like, well, I happen to know you have a podcast because I follow you. So I reply and go, and here's a link to their podcast. Why have you not linked your podcast? You should be linking this. Don't be shy, guys. Don't be shy. And that segues nicely to Bags by Terry. So Terry, who is T Schmidt on Instagram, and is another fellow male knitter, but from over in Texas way. He posted a while back, you know, like a week or so ago, some pictures of some bags that he'd started making, and they are amazing, and I was so jealous. And I was like, oh my god, they're amazeballs! On Instagram, to him. So he got in touch to let me know that he'd actually opened a shop. Yay! And because he's lovely, he was like, and I'd like to send you a bag. I'm like, yay! But in his message, he didn't include any information about the link for his shop, not even that it was on Etsy. It wasn't on his profile or on his Instagram page. He hadn't posted a photo about his shop, so there's nothing. He'd just written a message saying, I have a shop now. No links, nothing, no way to actually find it. So I messaged him back and went, obviously would love to have a bag. By the way, you should probably give me a link and then put it on your Rav profile and have a Rav group and put it on your Instagram. Come on, dude. It's okay, you're the boss. You're the boss. See, you're getting all the love, you're the boss. I'm ignoring him and loving you. And he was like, oh, but I don't want to be spammy with my photos. Again, if anyone has done or been interested in online selling, that's a really big thing to deal with. It's this idea that you're being spammy when you post photos of your product and stuff, because it feels like you're going, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, and it feels really kind of like needy and gross. If you're not a salesperson at heart, if you're a crafter but not a salesperson at heart, it can feel really icky. So there were two things to that. One was me kind of going, don't be an idiot. We love looking at people's knitting bags, project bags. We think they're awesome as knitters, as a community. I know because my Instagram feed has bags and lots of people going, ooh, all over them. And then I don't know, can't remember what that train of thought was at all. But basically, the upshot of it was I screenshotted one of his posts on Instagram and reposted it, which was a shot of all the bags that he'd made on this table. And at that point, he was just making them for fun. But it had some of the ones from his shop in it. So I was like, yeah, this is a good exemplar to post. And I posted it just on Instagram, just going, hey guys, Darren's a bit shy about posting photos of his bags now that he's got a shop open. Can we just sort of show that we love looking at bags, please? It's had something like 130 likes and shed loads of comments, which, you know, doesn't hurt my Instagram feed at all, so thanks guys. But it was brilliant because I think about 60 people went and followed him, which sort of doubled his follower numbers or something like that. So the poor guy was suddenly influxed on Instagram. But it was brilliant because he got loads and loads of really positive feedback, which is just awesome because when people come into the knitting community and actually present themselves, it's so nerve-wracking. You always see these posts and people going, oh, this is my first podcast, I'm so nervous, da, da, da. And then the second podcast always being, I do exactly the same thing, the second podcast being, oh my god, I'm like so emotional and blown away because you guys have been so lovely and I didn't expect it. Because it is, because this community is just fantastic. And so people did, so they really sort of were like, yay! So then I sort of did a bit of a tease and then I shared the link for the shop afterwards, kind of going, okay guys, here's the shop. And yeah, and a few people went and bought a bag kind of thing, so that was really nice. But there's still some left, and they're reduced at the moment, so you can totally go along and grab them at sort of about a third off. I think the price is about a third off at the moment, I think. So something like that. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, really. But yeah, so go and grab them while you can. And encourage Terry to make more bags and make a little bit of money through selling bags on Etsy, because that would be cool, right? Crafters love crafters. Yeah, but that was such a fun thing for me to do. I just really was like, oh my god, don't be shy about marketing yourself. And I just suddenly thought, actually, in reference to the stuff I was saying earlier about paying it forward, I think that's very much a paying it forward moment for me, because I love to share some of the awesome stuff that awesome people are doing. So you know that I talk about Countess Ablaze and Fondant Fibre and FO and Dye, and I love supporting those guys on here just by kind of talking about them and the people, really, because that's what really sells me, is if I know the person, then I will buy from them. You know, that's what I love because it means, like, it feels like I'm supporting my friend and I get shiny from it, so heck yeah. And it was a bit like that. It was just like, you know, this lovely guy that I chatted on Instagram to, and then supporting somebody in that transition from, oh, I don't really feel I can do this and I feel a bit nervous and it feels wrong to market yourself. And I'm like, nah, put yourself out there, mate, go for it. And so if somebody else can do that initially for you, and it seems to work because he's posted some photos now of the rest of his bags, just kind of showing what you can fit in them, what's inside the bag, that kind of, the pockets inside the bag, that kind of thing. So you get a few more extra detail shots, which hopefully he'll also put on his Etsy page if he hasn't already. But yeah, so that was really, really cool. That was really exciting. I really enjoyed that. And you guys made that happen, so I'm really appreciative. Anyway, yeah, so that's my community stuff. And then there's a few little shout outs and what have you, podcast wise. So I've already mentioned her, but entirely Crafty Lindsay mentioned me because I was talking about the Canadian accents in some of the podcasts. For example, Two Tangled Skeins, who are Canadian. And as a Brit, it's not obvious. I'm sorry, but the difference between the Canadian and the American accent is not obvious enough, given there's all these different accents across America and Canada. It is a freaking continent, guys, yo. We have enough different accents just on one island, so you guys, it's hard to tell when it's an American versus a Canadian accent for a non-American / Canadian. And so I think she was saying that she's Canadian, because she was saying she didn't think that she said out funny. But then she went on to say yeah, which is the other, I can't, a bit like kind of going da 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 da, a is like the stereotype that I've seen on American TV of Canadians, and she did da 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 yeah, da 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 yeah. And she did that a couple of times, and that made me giggle, because I was like, you're doing it, Lindsay! You're doing it! You are sounding like a Canadian. And her out wasn't a full-on oot, but it was definitely an oat or something. It was just a little bit different. But anyway, there we go. So another shout-out for Lindsay. Shout-out for a new podcast, which is Disa's Craftwork. She's a Swede. So if you've been enjoying Show Me Lin by Maya, for all Swedish things, then you'll definitely like Disa's Craftwork. It's a completely different slant on it, just because they're both from Sweden. It doesn't mean they're the same at all. It's a Stitch come to say hi. But she does talk about things like the forest nearby and the ocean nearby, and she hand dyes using plants and mushrooms and stuff, so it's that Swedish kind of cultural thing of foraging and what have you. So there are, and she's talked about some of the Swomy craft that she did a braid, like a tin wire braid or something like that. So there's still, you get the Swedish culture through in a different way than Maya does it. But it's lovely. She's still learning how to record from her phone, so it tends to do it in 20-minute chunks, so you get part 1, 2 and 3 a lot. I'm sure she'll get used to editing and stuff down the line, as we all do, but it's not a problem to watch it in parts, so go and check her out. It's just so you know what to expect, really. Another podcast that's new to me, and I think still fairly new, I can't remember actually what episode she was on. She's new to me, let's just stick with that, is Kat from Knitup Girl. She actually also gave me a shout out, so thank you, Kat. But she messaged me to let me know that she'd give me a shout out, which is a very, very smart thing to do, because it does mean that I am going to then check you out and subscribe and give you a shout out back on my podcast. So, smart lady. Tell me! Yeah, get in touch. Talk to me. I am just a human being. Okay, just a person with 2 cats that occasionally squabble. So I want you guys to get in touch. That's why I'm doing this podcast. Yeah, another reminder. Message me. It's not creepy. It's awesome. I love it. Makes me happy when I see the little thing in Reverie that goes jingle, jingle, jingle. New messages. Yay! So that made me happy, and I went over and watched her. And then there's another new podcast, which from Caroline in the UK, who is TillyTrout. And she's a member of my group. And she messaged me as well. Yeah, I was suddenly thinking, well, which one did one of them post in the group and one of them messaged me privately? I don't know. But anyway, I also got a message from her just kind of going, oh, I've published a podcast, very quietly. So of course I then prompted to post it on promptly posted it on Instagram and tell everyone about it, and got loads of people going, yay, thank you, Tilly's awesome, so glad to see this. So go and check her out. She is TillyTrout Knits on YouTube, and of course, as always, everything will be in the show notes. despite the fact that it's possibly the most boring part of doing a podcast is writing up the show notes. It's worth it because I know how much I appreciate it when other people do it. And I think it makes it much easier and therefore more likely for you guys to go and talk to these guys as well. 2 more. I've already mentioned her, Dark Matter Knits. The lovely Elizabeth, who is doing all kinds of amazing stuff and has a book out and is going to appear on like video of some kind. And how about you just try grooming him rather than chewing on him? And basically in my eyes therefore it's big time, and then she shouts me out and I'm like fangirling all over that, you know. So reminder to self, podcasters are people, knitting designers are people. I do get very jealous. Sorry, I've just clocked that the cat that likes to come in this garden and try and own it from Rory is out and about, and that just makes me on guard. And he's right here with me, making growly noises. Come here, little man, come here. But if the cat's in the garden, I usually go and chase it off. Because I'm like, no, this is not your garden anymore. It's mine and my cat's. Yeah, so my reminder to myself is that all these people are human. And, oh yeah, that was it. I was going to say that Josh talks about how he's sort of chatted with Stephen and met with him and gone, hi, and stuff. Because Stephen will go to the American shows. Even though he's based in Amsterdam, because he's obviously like a full-on professional designer. And I'm like, I'm not jealous, I'm not jealous, I'm not jealous, I'm not jealous, I'm not jealous. I am so stinking jealous! And it's like, actually, I could just write to him. And I don't have anything I particularly want to say other than, you're awesome. I love your shit right now. And I'm kind of like, well, that's fine, but I don't really have a conversation piece to go with. And given that he's quite popular, I imagine he just gets lots of people going, you're awesome, and not having anything to say. So I'm going to wait until I have something to say. But don't do that with me, because I am small fry. I don't have anybody that I don't have time to talk to, so come and write to me. But yes, so this is it anyway. It's that reminder that all these people are just human beings. And then last but not least, Doris got in touch with me from Knit and Pearl. Pearl is spelt like the thing an oyster makes as opposed to the knit stitch. So Knit and Pearl podcast saying that she was having a shawl knit along and would I please enter this in her knit along. And I thought that was lovely. Because quite frankly, if you go, hey, you could enter that in my knit along and I'll give you a prize if you win. And if you don't win, hey, it's no skin off your nose. I'm like, yes please. Oh, and by the way, here's a podcast for you to watch. Yes, please. And they messaged me about it, so I didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to do any work to go and find it. Yes, please. Well done, Doris. Thank you very much. So again, if you have a podcast and you are watching this and you have not blatantly told me about this and gone, podcast, then tell me about it. Because I'd love to watch people that are watching me. That's lovely. A little bit of mutual watching. This is suddenly sounding weird in my head, so I'm going to stop. Right. The last and final thing entirely is somebody on YouTube, I can't remember your name now, I'm so sorry, I think it's Lindsay, but I could be making that up, shared a link to Cats for Engineers. It's a little YouTube video and it was hilarious. Done in the style of kind of a 1990s Open University video or something. But suitably giggle making. So as a geek and a cat lover, that appealed. So I shall stick a link to that in the show notes, and if you're interested you can go and check it out. And I did look, and the channel that it's from posted other sort of odd, funny cat videos. I haven't watched any others yet, but it's there. Oh boy! Oh, this is my body telling me it's time to stop. And I've come to the end of my little notes for today. As always, I love you guys lots. Get in touch, even if you're just thinking about it. Make today the day that you decide to get in touch and say hi. Either private message me, or say hi in the comments, or join in on the forum. Join the group if you've not joined the group already. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week, when hopefully I am feeling a lot better. And I will have all kinds of interesting stash and stories from Bakewell. Until then, love you lots. Bye!